Please join me in welcoming Sal Scognamillo.
Thank you. Very happy to be here. Thank you so much, Michael.
And hopefully, a few of you had the opportunity to check out. There were some food items that were made in the one cafe. Some escarole, zucchini, broccoli rabe, some pasta chichi. Is that how?
Chichi, yes.
I'm not Italian, but
Chickpeas.
I'm trying to learn Italian. Zucchini pie.
Yes.
Any of those your favorites?
Oh, I love all that. The zucchini is one of my favorites too. Either the pie or the scarpetta style. Very, very tasty. Something different, and it's all Grandpa's recipes, you know. And him and my grandmother started this restaurant, and I don't know how they had the fortitude in the middle of World War II. They were doing this, and it's just amazing because they did the hard work, and I really just have to keep the car on the road, so to speak. And I also want to thank Google for having me here today. This is wonderful. I'm very very honored to be with them, and thank you for interviewing me as well.
Absolutely. You know, Patsy's is associated with, as I said, many celebrities who continue to go and enjoy the food to this day. Probably one of the most legendary celebrities that Patsy's is known as having the honor to serve is a gentleman named Frank Sinatra. And, you know, there's a really great video clip. Sal has put up a few video clips on YouTube, and I wanted to share this before we talk a little bit about Frank, but there's a clip of Sal telling the story on YouTube about how he first met Frank Sinatra when he was a little boy at the restaurant. So why don't we play that, and then we can talk a little bit about Frank and other celebrities.
And he says, hey Sal, you want to meet Frank Sinatra? I'm 13 years old. I said, okay, no problem. And my job was to get him in. He had a secret entrance here. I had to get him in the side door and bring him up to the second floor dining room, an entrance to come in here. We put him in this room, close our curtains, no one knew he was here. And I had the key to the door, and I can remember it to this day because I didn't sleep for 2 days afterwards. I was trying to get that key in the door. I was jiggling. I was so nervous because he wanted to shake my hand. He says, hey kid, how are you? You're Joe's son. And all I had was one thing on mind. I want to get him in the door, make sure I don't screw this up for my family. And I finally did, and it was fun, and he shook my hand. It was a lot of laughs. And then the first time I cooked for him, I was about 22 years old. My father was in the dining room with him. My father had a suit on. My father was a chef before me. So Sinatra says to my dad, he says, Joe, what are you doing with a suit? You got to go in the kitchen and cook for me. He says, no, my kid Sal took over that. He says, let me go see him. I'm in the kitchen here, minding my own business. The door swings open. I look up. It's Frank Sinatra. I said, oh, hi. He said, hey, kid. I says, yes, Mr. Sinatra. He says, make sure you cook as good as your pop does.
What were some of the other dishes Frank liked?
I like the stuffed artichoke, which I just made. I'm going to be on, I taped the other day on Meredith Vieira. I'm going to be on March 17th. And I guess it's appropriate. It's St. Patrick's Day, so it was green food, artichoke, right? And he liked the veal Milanese was his favorite for main courses. Scallopini of veal, very thin, flour, egg, seasoned breadcrumb, fried till it was crisp. He really, I mean, he ate more or less everything. One of the things towards the end of his life, he couldn't eat as much eating the garlic. So anything I made with him, for him with garlic, I would saute the whole cloves in the olive oil just to get the flavor and take out the garlic then and add the tomatoes, or if it was to the artichokes or anything like that. It's just amazing. We say it's the restaurant made famous by Frank Sinatra. And we're so lucky that if you come into the restaurant, you see there's a lot of celebrity photos on the wall. And almost every one of them could be connected to Frank one way or another. And like he brought in Frankie Valli in 1962, the year I was born. He's been coming to our restaurant 54 years now because Frank brought him the first time. He brought Tony Bennett. He brought Rosemary Clooney, who brought George Clooney. And it's really amazing. I mean, my father just told me recently, I wish my father, you know, he remembers everything, but you have to sort of get it out of him to talk about it. He was telling me that 1969, after the astronauts landed on the moon and then he had the parade in downtown New York, Frank brought him to Patsy's. And it's amazing. Even to this day, like someone who you might not realize is a big Sinatra fan is P. Diddy. And he started coming in because he loves Frank. And, you know, with a city of 20,000 restaurants, I mean, you have to have the good food, the good service, and all those things, of course. But to have someone to come and walk through that door the first time, I mean, that's, and hopefully then you do your job to keep them coming back.
Absolutely. Well, so he walked in the door the first time when? It was before you were 13 and you let him in the door.
Yes, of course.
Before that, right?
Well, you know, my grandfather first met him. My grandfather had a restaurant for 2 years before he opened Patsy's, from 1942 to 1944, called the Sorrento. And my grandfather had a little bit of a reputation in the business because he was a manager, he was a waiter, he was a busboy. He started worked in all different restaurants, so he had a little bit of a following. And there was a man named Tommy Dorsey, who was a band leader,
Yeah.
who was pretty responsible for starting off Frank Sinatra. And he brought Sinatra to my grandfather back in 1942 and said, "Hey, Patsy, I got this skinny kid from Hoboken. I want you to fatten him up for me." And that started a great relationship. Even like Michael Bublé comes in now because he loves Sinatra as well. That's how he started coming in, and he didn't really become famous until after Frank passed away. One of the things that Grandma and Grandpa always taught us, though, was that, and it may sound a little bit hokey in today's climate, but this was just a bigger version of their home. This is the food they cooked at home. You had a bigger kitchen and a bigger dining room, but you want to welcome these people as family. And if you go back to what I just said, there's 20,000 restaurants. I have to go over and thank those people for making the decision to walk through that door. It's a big deal to us, and we never take it lightly. We never rest on our laurels. We want to make sure every meal was as good as the last one that they had, because, they can choose not to come back. That's part of it.
Well, I've certainly experienced that. I mean, I think from the beginning when I've been coming since, I said the mid-'90s, the second time I came in, they remembered me. Sal's father, Joe, who still works at the front a lot, remember, he didn't know my name. He probably called me Kid or something, but he remembered me. And I think to this day, that's such a theme at Patsy's. You treat everybody like family, which
we try, we really do. And like you were saying in the beginning, it's our only location, Patsy's Italian Restaurant. The other places, Patsy Pizza is not affiliated with us. It's a long story. I won't bore you with the details, but it's important to us to, the recipes are the same. The heart of the menu is the same. Most of the suppliers I buy from are the same. But one of the things I want to thank Michael publicly here is that he was the first one to say to go on social media and things like that. And we have the Facebook and the Twitter and Instagram, and of course, my kids know better than I do how to do that stuff. But it's amazing how much you get from that. I mean, and it's also helped us to shift more of our energy and resources a little bit away from advertising, the traditional sense, to advertising this way and getting customers this way, which is great. And back in '94, which was our 50th anniversary, we came out with the sauce, which was a product of our customers always asking us, gee, you have such a great tomato sauce. Can you put it in a jar? And up until then, there really wasn't anything that, I know my father wasn't going to do it on his own, and we had to twist his arm to do it. But this was something that now, believe it or not, brings customers to us. So people can buy this, in supermarkets across the country. And if they've bought it in California and head into New York, they want to try our place. And that's another way of getting to see where we are.
Well, and I would say you're probably not giving yourself enough credit on social media. Sal, if you go to the Facebook page, you'll see Sal is really a master at sharing things, which is what we really want. You want to see a great plate of pasta, and you share some amazing dishes on social media.
Recipe Monday every day, every Monday on Facebook and stuff. And it's almost 9 times out of 10 that gets the most hits. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to is you want to have the good food. You want to have a good experience. You're not spending your hard-earned dollars not to enjoy yourself, of course. And being in the theater district is helpful. Right by Carnegie Hall, all the major theaters. It's always been a great area. It's only gotten better throughout the years. And it's even the website. We get so many hits on the website. People they want to see your menu. They want to see what kind of food you have. And it's something that really we try and keep up to date as much as we can with it. Like I said, my children are better at this as well, and God willing, they may be the 4th generation. Sure. My older boy loves business. He's 2nd year in college now, and the younger one is a senior in high school, and he wants to cook. So I said to my father, I always tease my dad, who's been working there for the whole 72 years, by the way. I said, I think I'm going to retire before you. And when I say that, I have to duck, But it's great. I mean, I'm lucky to be with my family as well.
Well, back to Frank Sinatra for a second. So every year you have a birthday celebration on Frank's birthday. You had the 100th celebration just recently, which became a whole week.
Yes.
Maybe tell me a little bit about how that came to be. And
we always celebrated his birthday, December 12th. And this year was a special one because, as you just mentioned, he turned 100. So we had Sirius XM. They have Seriously Sinatra, the station devoted to him. They came in and we did a 3-hour live show. And Steve Tyrell was the host. And we had several people calling in, but the first caller was Tina Sinatra, Frank's daughter, sure, which was fun. And it's amazing that how he's influenced so many other artists now these days. As I mentioned, P. Diddy before, if you look at some of the commercials, I believe it's for the Ciroc vodka, Luck Be a Lady is playing in the background. So it's just, it's a timeless thing, and if you could ask for a better PR person than him, I don't know if you could find someone to promote you, and it's something that if he liked you, you didn't want for anything. So it was really a lot of fun. And that celebration, like you said, because so many people wanted to come, we did 5 different parties because we couldn't fit everyone into the restaurant on the one day. But it was wonderful, and it's just a thing we're so proud and honored to carry on as well.
So reserved now for next year.
Next year, put it down.
The 101st.
Yes.
Now, I would imagine then you have a story or two of Frank Sinatra above and beyond what we saw in the video of meeting him. There was probably some great moments.
So many fun things. I mean, with my experience when I was 16, 1978, New York Yankees won the World Series.
Go Yankees.
And they called up my father, Joe, and said, we want Billy Martin, the manager, wanted to bring the whole team. We made a reservation for 50 people. Upstairs can be parties of 2, 4, 6, or it could be separated. The back room where Sinatra used to, actually the front of the restaurant, Sinatra used to see it, would be about 30, 35 people. In the other section, you could do 50. So when the Yankees arrived, my father had them set up in the front part of the room, and he congratulated them. They won the World Series, and Billy Martin, the manager, said to my father, well, why don't we sit over there? We're supposed to sit, back there, pointing behind the curtain. And my father was trying to be diplomatic, but he didn't realize what he said. He said, I said that saved for someone really important. So Billy Martin was really angry with my father. And obviously, a few minutes later, we got the signal Sinatra would come in the private entrance. And Sinatra was coming up the steps, and Billy Martin went face to face with him. And Billy Martin, of course, was the Yankees, and Sinatra, people don't realize, was a Dodgers fan. Yanks just beat the Dodgers.
Oh, boy.
So he wasn't happy to see Billy Martin. And he said, what the hell are you doing here? And Billy Martin, for the first time in his life, was tongue-tied, a little tongue-tied there. And Sinatra walked back behind the curtain with his party, and then Billy Martin came over to my father. Instead of being angry, he said, oh, I want to meet Frank Sinatra. My father said, you just met him. He says, yeah, but I got tongue-tied. So my father asked Frank, he says, it's okay, just bring Billy back, no one else. I'm a little tired, I flew in from the West Coast. My father told Billy to come back, and Billy Martin, being Billy Martin, those of you who knew him, was a hothead. He stepped up on top of one of the tables and said to the whole team, come on, we're going to meet Frank Sinatra. And it took him a whole hour, and he was just very patient and very nice. He congratulated everyone, and Yanks ate their dinner, and Sinatra ate his dinner. Normally, that would be the end of the story. About 3 hours go by, Frank gets up, pulls the curtain back, waves goodbye to the Yankee team. Yankee team applauds him, and he leaves. Billy Martin comes over to my dad. He said, oh, my God, that was what a special night we just had. We won the World Series. We ate at Patsy's restaurant, and we met Frank Sinatra. He says, we weren't going to leave until Frank left. He says, now that Frank had left, he says, we can go. Can I please have the check? My father hesitated for a second. He says, I'm sorry, Billy, I can't do that. Frank picked it up for you, the whole team. He bought dinner for the whole team. He was a great man. I mean, if you didn't like someone, stay away. But if you liked you, you're in good shape. You're in good shape. But it really is for me. I'm a very lucky person. I mean, I get to do what I love. So, you say you never work a day in your life when you're doing that. And I've been full-time since January of '85. I took television film production, so I love this part of it as well.
Right.
I couldn't get a job. So my father said, would you like to learn how to cook? And, that's also a great part about it. Is I wasn't forced into the business, as I wouldn't do for my children as well. And I really enjoy it. I'm very lucky. I meet nice people all the time. We've become very good friends. I mean, just a wonderful byproduct of being in this type of business where you're trying to make people happy.
Well, and hearing that story, the wonderful thing about, I think, your cookbooks is you integrate the stories throughout both this and the first cookbook, which is, it just adds to the flavor and makes you want to eat the food. And as you're reading some of the stories, how did this cookbook come about? I know the first cookbook did very well, was a bestseller.
Yes.
This one is an Italian family cookbook, it's called.
Yes.
How's this different than the first one?
Well, the first one is more or less almost all restaurant recipes. This one I tried to integrate some of our family recipes as well, which really are what we do there too, but just some other ones that haven't always been on the menu that will make us specials as well. And it was always for me, even the first book, which is this one here, and the foreword was written by Nancy Sinatra, Frank's daughter. It was about really getting some type of a history of the restaurant written down, because all these great stories would be lost, and all the history of it would be lost. I mean, I really, admire what my grandparents did, as I mentioned. And it's a really funny story is that Grandpa, he passed in '86, Grandpa Patsy. And I became the chef in '85. And last time he was at the restaurant was late '85, and there was a group of us waiting, family members waiting for him to come. He lived in Jersey at the time, and he couldn't drive, so someone drove him in. And we were so happy Grandpa was coming to see us. You know, we're going to have dinner together. We usually eat about 3 in the afternoon in between lunch and dinner. And Grandpa pulls up, and the whole family, hey, welcome, Grandpa. And he didn't say a word. He walked past all of us, walked in the kitchen, went down the steps in the refrigerator, came back up. I said, Grandpa, what happened? He says, now I could say hello to you. He says, I want to check and see if you were still buying the same veal I told you to buy. So, you know, it was that kind of a feeling that, and that was his life. And he used to wear this little gray jacket. Everyone thought he was a busboy. And we'd always say, you know, Pop, why don't you, dress up? You're the owner and stuff. He says, no. People won't ask me to fill the water or bring them the bread, then they'll be intimidated to ask the owner to do something. So he was really about service, and we just try and echo that as well. I mean, again, so many other restaurants that you could go to. Why go here?
Well, and you're always out in the room. I think I've never been there that you didn't come out and talk to everybody at every table. And
I always try and make sure, go around, everything's okay. And if if everyone's showing up for work and no one's on vacation or no one's out sick, I can do that. I mean, because I get my bulk of my work, which is making the soups, the sauces, the things that take time, cutting up the veal, the baking. If I get all that done by about 3, which I usually do, I can go out and mingle, which is my favorite part. And, in case, sometimes there's a party of 20 in the back and the captain's taking the order, and there may be a party or 2 that's waiting a little bit longer, and you don't want to let that slip through the cracks, that someone's being ignored. And, it's, again, they're spending their hard-earned money. You've got to make sure they're happy as well.
Sure. So Patsy's Italian Family Cookbook, I also like being an aspiring cook. I would never be a chef, and I love to make Italian food, but just some of the nuggets of information, I think 2 probably primary ingredients in most Italian dishes are olive oil and garlic, and I think there's some interesting things in the cookbook. Maybe you can share, how do you pick a good olive oil?
Well, it's got to have the right, and people always talk about extra virgin, and I use that for non-cooked dishes, like the roast peppers and mozzarella, the salads, things like that. Because once you start cooking it, you don't get the full flavor of it. So you could use olive oil to cook, and we use from Umbria. It's usually the best region I found, but there's so many that you can get that are good now. Garlic, of course, you have to make sure it's fresh. We take it, peel it off, and usually chop it, and that's the way like a marinara is made. And we say the Holy Trinity is garlic, oil, and tomatoes, right? So
okay.
3 best ingredients. But what's interesting is that a lot of our sauces, even in the jar, the best-selling one is the marinara, which is the garlic. The second best is the tomato basil. A lot of times I see companies, when you go to market, like a pasta sauce, they'll have 3 different labels. They'll have a spaghetti sauce, a marinara, and a tomato basil. It's the same sauce. This sauce is distinctive. The tomato basil is different in different seasonings, and it's onions. There's no garlic. And people say, wait, Italian food has to have garlic, and not necessarily. Not necessarily. Even we make a filetto di pomodoro, which is onion, tomatoes, and prosciutto. The meat sauce that we make is a red sauce because we're from southern Italy, from Naples, and that we use tomato in. And it's onions, again, no garlic. I mean, if someone wants, of course, we can add it. Most dishes are cooked to order, so we can do that as well. But it's not always so. And my father, as he's gotten older, he can't digest the garlic as well. That's what we talked about Frank Sinatra. So if we make a dish, we saute the whole cloves to get the flavor in the olive oil, and then put your tomatoes in and stuff like that. And it's a lot of the red sauce is the base of the kitchen, but the heart of the menu is the same as when Grandma and Grandpa started. As I mentioned before, many of the distributors we use are the same. And the people we buy mozzarella is called DiPaolo. It's downtown on Grand Street. And we're their longest customer for 72 years. Now, they've been in business since 1920.
Wow.
And they were also 3rd generation as well.
Wow.
So it's a level of consistency. I think one compliment that I remember that was one of my favorites of all time is a steady customer who's been coming since before I was the chef. And how am I going to feel about cooking for someone like that? Oh, I said, here's your table. I hope you enjoy everything tonight. Sal, I know what the food's going to taste like before I come here. So that was the kind of thing that really stuck in my head to say, hey, you got a responsibility to make sure it's consistent all the time. And we don't try to be something we're not. Mm-hmm. It's not a fancy frou-frou restaurant, but it's a good stick-to-your-ribs Southern Italian red sauce joint, as Frank Sinatra would say.
That's right.
As Sinatra would say. And hopefully that's what appeals to people, and we're lucky so far. We're doing okay.
I feel like I always burn the garlic. Is there a way, any trick?
A lot of people heat up the oil first, and then put the garlic in, and it will burn right away. I put it in when the oil is still room temperature, and then you brown it. And if you do burn it, it's gone. You got to start over. There's no salvaging that. Even the oil is going to have that flavor. And of course, it's being such a big flavor in a dish. Garlic is a strong flavor. You have to redo it then.
My mouth is salivating.
Yeah,
just thinking
we're
about
trying to get
garlic
you going.
cooking, right?
Garlic and oil, right?
Are there particular recipes in this cookbook that are favorites of yours that sort of come to mind? What are
Well, I'll always default to pasta, and as you see, the cover is spaghetti and meatballs. And it's a funny story with the meatballs. They were off the menu for a little while, and I kept saying to my dad, I says, you know, it was like the late '80s. It wasn't as chic to have, you know, spaghetti and meatballs, I guess. I don't know. And I said to my dad, I said, you know, we should put them back on. Everyone asks for them all the time, and we had such a big fight over it. And he was like, no, it's been off the menu. That's it. I said, look, we have this section with the specials. Let's try it for a few days. If not, we'll just take that section off. I mean, and he'll never says, I'm never going to question you again. We sold like 1,300 meatballs the first week, you know. And it's
I ate 1,200.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I love the spaghetti.
Michael. Well, it's a veal meatball, and people say, you know, a lot of people do the veal, beef, and pork, which is what my mother-in-law does. My mother makes just beef, but Grandpa Patsy was veal. And I think it was mainly because that was what his scrap was when he cleaned. We used to clean the whole leg of veal. And you'd always have scraps. You make the meat sauce from that, chop it up, make meatballs. Now the pieces come already clean for you. It's much easier. But it's definitely, what I've noticed about it is it's more gelatinous. So it keeps it moister. When you have the veal meatballs, they feel like they're lighter and they feel moister, you know, more juice to it. And that's what people seem to love about it. That's Frankie Valli's favorite dish. He talked about that on, I think it was the S Network. They did an interview with him, the Yankee Network, about it. It's funny. And, you know I got to make sure I make enough meatballs when that show airs, you know, which is fun. It's been great. You know, we've, since the first cookbook came out, was 2002, I was able to get on TV shows and things like that. And again, that's another vehicle to let people know about your restaurant. I mean, as much as sometimes you may think, oh, people know about you, no, it's hard to keep it relevant.
Well, you certainly have been on TV a lot. When Tony Danza had his show, I feel like you were on almost every week.
Tony Danza is so much fun. And, you know, I've been so blessed. I've been on the Today Show. Martha Stewart, as I mentioned, we're going to be on. I taped the show for Meredith Vieira. I think Tony Danza was the only person I couldn't teach how to cook anything. So it's funny. He's quite a character. I think he got in trouble that he talked about Patsy's Italian restaurant so much. I think he got a letter from the Olive Garden, from the corporate, because a corporate sponsor.
Sure.
So we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to put ads for your show, and you mentioned this one for free. So, but I think that's part of the reason he got fired, because he did whatever he wanted. So
now we know the truth.
But I tell you a funny story. I met Tony Danza was that when the first cookbook came out, as I mentioned, I got a lot of interviews, and one of the interviews I did was with Where magazine. It's in all the hotels. Where, it shows you where everything is. And they asked me a question I wasn't asked on an interview before. It was interesting. They were looking at the pictures on the wall at the restaurant, and they said, Sal, whose picture is missing from there? In other words, which celebrity has never come that you'd like to meet? And I instantly said, I says, oh, you know, I've always admired Tony Danza. He's so much fun. He grew up on Long Island, not far from where I grew up, where I still live. And somehow that made it into the article. Somehow a bartender at the hotel he was staying at showed him the article. And he saw this. He walks in with the article in one hand, and you know, you could picture Tony like this, screaming and yelling, I see my name in the paper. I'm here. Where's this guy, Sal? And it was so much fun because, and I didn't know whether to hug him or hide under the table. I says, oh, my God, look at this. And he was flattered that I wanted to meet him. It so boggles my mind. It's so cool. And we became friends, which is nice. And like you said, when he had his television show 2 years in New York, I think it was on 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. We were in, my kids were younger then, and it was about 10 years ago, we were in Disney for vacation. And we were waiting on a line for one of the rides, and some man ran up to me and says, "Are you Sal from Patsy's restaurant? I saw you on the Tony Danza show. Can I have your autograph?" I was like, I went over to my wife and says, Lisa, you told him to do this, right?"
Right.
He said, no. So, I mean, yeah, we got a lot of recognition from that one, which was fun, which was a lot of fun.
Well, another actor who wrote the foreword, Ben Stiller. How did that connection happen?
Well, you know, the Jerry Stiller, his father, and Ann Mira, who sadly passed last year, were very close with Frank Sinatra. But the way they first came in was they did the Ed Sullivan Show. The Still and Mira was a comedy team for the younger ones amongst us that don't know. That's Ben Stiller's parents, and they did the Ed Sullivan Show, which was taped just where David Letterman was, where Stephen Colbert is now.
Yeah.
And they said to celebrate to get on the Ed Sullivan Show in those days was like that was the gold standard, and to celebrate we wanted to go to a real white tablecloth restaurant. And that's the first time, and that was in the early '60s that they came to our restaurant, and they've been coming ever since. And they brought their children. I mean, Ben Stiller wrote a foreword that it makes me cry when I look at it. I mean, just to condense it real quickly, basically what he says is that he remembers my grandfather, and he was a little boy, and he'd come with his sister Amy, and he'd say, "What can I make for you tonight? Please sit down. What can I make for you tonight?" And then he recounts when my father became the chef, and my father would say the same thing, "What can I make for you tonight?" And when I became the chef, and then he ends the foreword with saying, "I can't wait for Sal's son Peter to come and be the chef and ask me, well, what can I make for you tonight?" I mean, it's so overwhelming to me that these people have such a loyalty, not just celebrities, the customers, generations of customers, and people come in and then they have their children with them. I said, "Oh, you made more customers for us now," So it's really it's just I can't get over how lucky we are that people are so fiercely loyal to us as well.
Sure.
It's a big deal, and if you're open 5 years, that's like a big deal. It's 72 years, thank God. But it's as long as people want it, we'll be happy to keep serving as well.
Well, we're going to open it up for questions in a minute, but 72 years. What's next? We're going to start planning for the 100th anniversary, right?
God willing, we'll be here. And yeah, like I said, my children, I won't force them. They're both interested. Joseph, the older one, likes the business aspect, and Peter likes the cooking aspect of it. And God willing, if they want to come in, we're going to try and continue to do this. I mean, the way we have branched out, as we mentioned, the sauce and the cookbooks and things like that. God willing, who knows if it's in the future other places, but you never know what could happen with that. It's always important to us that the quality stays the same. I mean, even when we put this sauce in the jar, we have this done by co-packers, companies that do this for you. And one of the things we always got when we went to co-packers is, we're already making an Italian spaghetti sauce. Just give us your label. We'll slap it on there. Right? You're kind of missing the point. We want our sauce in the jar. So that was what was important to us. That was the hardest thing to convince my dad to do it. We had to twist his arm. He says, if it's not good, it's not coming out. And, he's right. He's right. I mean, you shouldn't, this is why you are where you are. Don't lower your standards.
Well, and I think it's an indication that you make quality food, and you've also been open and curious to new things, and you've been innovative. From the sauces to the cookbooks. You had I think the Google Maps folks came in.
That's right. The Google Maps did an inside of our restaurant, and I'm understanding that's a big deal, which I was real excited about.
Well, it's nice because if you don't have a chance to go to the restaurant, you can go online and you can go in the restaurant and see.
Yeah,
I don't know if it takes you into the Sinatra room upstairs. I don't remember.
If they did that or not.
But you have to go and experience that live.
But that's another way to get another generation that's interested in. That's why this social media stuff is relevant too.
Yeah.
It really makes a big difference. I think, a lot of people tell me, and again, I'm not so good at this, but they say, we do a Google search, Midtown, family-owned, this, that, and we pop up. And I mean, how big is that? I mean, if you're looking for something, years ago, it's still a word of mouth, but years ago you relied on a friend or a concierge at a hotel or something like that. Now everyone has the phone or the device to check and see, and we've got great reviews online as well, which is helpful. And that's, again, first time to get them in, and then hopefully they come back and tell their friends as well.
And those pictures you post of the food don't hurt either. They certainly help.
It's tempting. It's tempting.
Do we have any questions? Anybody want to step up to the mic? Feel free. While you're moving over there, I'll ask you, what is your favorite thing to eat
I'm always going to default to pasta. And I think rigatoni sorrentino, which is sort of similar to a baked ziti, but it's with ricotta, mozzarella, and tomato basil sauce and Parmesan cheese on top.
Yeah.
And if I'm in the mood for a garlicky pasta, I love the clam sauce. Very simple, garlic and oil, the fresh clams, a little clam water, touch of oregano, fresh basil. No salt because it's salty already.
Sure.
Simple stuff, but that's what I'll always default to, and that's why I'm never going to be thin. But don't trust a thin chef, right?
Right.
Hey Sal, I met you in your restaurant, I think like half a year ago when a lot of us came in there, and it's really cool to see you
Thank
again.
you,
That's why I
thank
came out
you.
here. Yeah, and I think somebody was like inviting you here. He said, I want to come to Google, so
Yeah.
it's good to see that happen.
I'm so honored. Thank you.
Yeah. So like, what are your, or what are some of the most popular kind of off-menu dishes that people somehow know to order?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it's a good question. You know, and quite often, if they call me up and I've had the ingredients, I'll make it. If not, give me a day or two to get it. And one is a brajol, which is either pork or beef, and it's a flank, and you cut up the pork or the beef, and you beat it down flat. It's stuffed with chopped beef or pork, depending on which one, raisins, pine nuts, garlic, and cheese. We roll it up, braise in the oil, and it slow cooks in the sauce for about 2.5, 3 hours. That's why we always tell you to order it before. Another one would be lasagna. Lasagna, classic Southern Italian dish. We make 4 layers, meatballs, sausage, cheese, tomato sauce, and it's a popular dish as well. People ask for. The things that are on the menu that you don't see in other places that are popular are tripe, which is one of the few things I don't eat. It's a honeycomb tripe. It's the intestine of the stomach of the cow, but it's a great sauce. It's with onions, peas, and prosciutto, and it's stewed with tomato sauce and white wine. Very popular, and when we make the filetto di pomodoro, people like that to take it to matriciana. So it starts off with onions, prosciutto, tomatoes, and a matriciana we add the pancetta, which is Italian bacon, and I put a little bit of regular American bacon in there. So you can make derivatives of different dishes. And again, if I have the ingredients, I'm more than happy to do it.
There's
Thank you
also
very
a dish you make. I don't think it's on the menu with the melon. You made that for me a couple times. It's a great like summer pasta.
Prosciutto and melon sauce doesn't sound that good. It was in the first word.
It's fantastic.
And it's a little different, but we had a party that had canceled the last minute, and I had made some, melon wrapped with prosciutto with the toothpicks to pass around. And I says, oh no, what I'm going to do, this is all cut up already. So we always make dinner for the employees. So I just took it, I sauteed some onions, some tomato sauce, a little touch of fresh basil, and put it over fresh linguine. And everyone went crazy for it.
It's really good.
It's sweet and salty.
It's a strange combo, but it's really good.
It worked good. I may make you remind me about that. That's right.
Yeah.
Haven't made that for a while, but it's always a pleasure. I mean, that's for us. We can do it. It's funny how so many places you go to and you try and substitute something, and they don't want to know from beans. They don't want to know. I have a friend of mine that's been coming there probably a little bit longer than you, and he went. I won't mention the name, but he went to a steakhouse with his wife and 2 other couples with 6 people. And, they spent a good $1,200. And at the end of the meal, he said, the waitress was taking the order and said, for dessert. And he says, I'd just like to have some ice cream. And she says, I'm sorry, sir, we don't have ice cream. And he said, well, you just mentioned one of the desserts was pie a la mode. The apple pie with the vanilla ice cream on top. She says, yeah, but we can't separate it. So he said, I'll pay for the whole thing. It doesn't matter. He's a wealthy man. It doesn't matter. He says, I'm sorry, we can't do that, sir. And I think that's what...
I think for $1,200, I would go to the store and buy ice cream, right? I mean...
Well, he was embarrassed because he was with 2 other couples. But
yeah.
The thing is, I think that's what takes out... a lot of people tell us to do open table, which I think we eventually will do. But... it takes the human element out of it. Open table is going to tell you Saturday night there is no reservation. That's it. But if you call me up the last minute and it's a party of 2, it's not a party of 10.
Yeah.
I'm going to say yes, of course. I mean, we try and do that. We always try to save a table or 2 for regulars that walk in and don't call. I mean, we always ask everyone to call. It's better for the table to wait for you than the other way around. And the last thing you want to do, and this is something that if I could change in this business, I would, is it gets me crazy when people get angry and you don't have a table. And I say, do you really think I don't want your business? I mean, I want to take care of you, but where can I put you? So, it's not. There's no perfect solution to it, but it's interesting when a computer would tell you that there's no table, but somehow, there's going to be a no-show on a Saturday night, something like that. So that's a human element, and that's where we would give him just the ice cream, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it would be no problem.
We have a question over here.
Hi, Sal.
Hi.
Thanks for coming over.
Oh, thanks.
I just ate and I'm still like, mouth-watering.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
I would like to get your view on like, there's a sort of a trend nowadays of like about modernist cuisine. We often hear about like Massimo Bottura. Probably heard of this Italian chef. He does a lot of things about molecular food. And he kind of like, it seems like people are more and more into like, like molecular, modernist, things that go like a little bit beyond like traditional cuisine. And from what I hear, it sounds like you're more sort of passionate about bringing all the traditions all together and like, carry on this trend. So like to get your vision on that, on like how you see this coming over for your restaurant and maybe, in terms of, cuisine overall in New York or in the world.
Oh, that's a great question. It's funny is that we always say that we don't try and be something we're not, whether it's in life or it's in us in terms of what our restaurant is. If every place is opening and serving Tuscan food, we're not going to change the menu to suit that. I mean, like I said, we'll make the different dishes that people ask for, but we try and do the one thing and the one thing just right. While on the other hand, I think it's wonderful to have other things and new ideas, and I'm always open to them as long as they fit into it. I mean, something is, and I don't know if it's just our particular customer, something simple if we change the bread. Like I try to get some bread with some olives, the olives loaves in there and some rosemary. Steady customer. Where's my bread? Where's my regular bread? So you got someone coming in 25, 30 years, you don't want to get them upset about it. And I tell you, the food that I looked here today, I'm just overwhelmed how much food you have in this thing. I think as much as I'm already overweight, I think it'd be another 100 pounds if I worked here. But it's wonderful. It's a great idea to keep those things going. I mean, and different combinations are all wonderful. My youngest son is so good. He loves that show, Chopped. And he could look at those ingredients and just figure something out where I don't know, it just doesn't work with my brain, but he can come up with something really right away. Thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to maybe get one more Sinatra story out of you because I think there's a moment where your dad was very sensitive to an artist or performer who was kind of down on his luck at the time, and something happened that I think is a great story. So maybe you could share that.
Yeah.
I think you know which one I'm talking about.
This was before I was born. It was the early '50s, and a lot of people don't realize Frank Sinatra was down on his luck. I mean, it was basically finished. The industry thought he was finished. He had lost his voice. He lost the record contract. Ava Gardner just broke up with him. That was his love of his life. And people that normally, and he would come to the restaurant and eat by himself. And he'd say to my grandfather, Patsy, sit with me. I don't want to eat by myself. I don't want to be here. And he'd point to the other customers and say, these people are all my fair weather friends. They only come when the sun is shining. When I'm doing good, these are the people that would want to buy me a drink or pay for my dinner. Now they ignore me. And my grandfather always used to reassure him, say, Frank, you'll make a comeback someday. And this was right before From Here to Eternity, which was his comeback. The next day was Thanksgiving. And to this day, we're still closed on Thanksgiving. It's one of the few holidays we're closed. And Frank Sinatra said to my grandfather, Patsy, he says, I want to come in tomorrow. Book me a table for one. My grandfather had signs up all over the place that they closed the next day, but he didn't have the heart to tell Frank Sinatra that they were closed. And he would invite him over to his house, which he had been a million times. And he says, okay, Frank, no problem. He took the signs down. He told all the waiters, he says, if it's possible, can you come in tomorrow? And there was moaning and groaning with Thanksgiving. He said, bring your family. It's for Frank Sinatra. He's coming in. I don't want him to be here by himself. And they did. And the next day he walked in, and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Could you picture this in the 50s? Italian restaurant. And he says to my grandfather, hey, Patsy, it's a little quiet today. No one in the place. I mean, think about it. And he ate dinner, and he found out later in life that my grandfather opened just for him. And he never forgot it. He never forgot it. He was very, very loyal about that. And he did make his comeback when he did From Here to Eternity, and he never went back down. That was right to the moon. All good stuff. All good stuff. Very, very amazing. And these are the ones that my father can remember. So got to get him to sit down one day with my video camera and take some more stories from him.
Well, Sal, thank you for sharing with us. The cookbook is amazing, Patsy's Italian Family Cookbook. I have both of them, of course, and I'd encourage you to go to Patsy's anytime. Now you know you can, go at
You
the
know the
last
chef,
minute
you're
and
in.
ask for Sal, right?
You're in.
And there's many, 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 many more stories from Frank to,
All fun.
Ben Stiller and beyond, and Bublé, and
And what's really nice, though, about, we didn't get into too much about is the cookbooks, is that, especially, this one's been out longer, the first one, is that the people use them. They say to me, this book is like all dirty with sauce stains on it. So I'm using it, and it's ingredients I know and recipes I can make. And I tell people, don't be intimidated. I mean, I made the lasagna on Martha Stewart, as I mentioned to you, and it's not difficult. It's just time consuming. You can do it. It's not crazy ingredients. It's stuff you probably already have in your cabinet, and that's why I think it's been a success. And it's really fun. It's really fun. I'm very lucky. I think every day I wake up, I can't believe how lucky I am.
Well, thank you. And I know you're going to sign some books.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to. That'd be great.
Obviously, if you haven't already, check out Patsy's on their website and on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram.
All those good
All
things.
the above. But Sal, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike.
All right.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
Thank you.